Hello, and welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series. WWW is a platform where we provide a space for women to leverage collective wisdom, experiences, and inspiration from women powerhouses in our industry to become innovative game changers. We will be engaging in insightful conversations with women who have changed the face of businesses in our industry and trailblazers who have steered innovative and creative ideas. This is a must-listen podcast for women leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs to become visible, break glass ceilings, and to grow their impact. We believe that sharing these insights will be a catalyst for women in our industry to unleash their potentials and to seize the crisis as a turning point. So join our conversations by subscribing to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast.
I admire particularly those who are true to their mission and to their beliefs, and who, show that in every aspect of their life, in every facet, right? It's not just what they say publicly on LinkedIn, but it's actually what they embody every single day. So when I meet them outside of work, they do many things related to the same vision. They'll do it when they are posting about something, when they're talking to friends, when they are talking on an interview, when they are at a party, when they are networking, when they are writing an article or answering an interview. All these are the sort of women that I admire in particular, because it's kind of hard to find people who are truly honest and true to their mission and their beliefs. Everybody has a little bit of this, pretending to be in a certain way because that's the right thing to say, but it's not really the true to what they do. And so I particularly admire those who are.
Hello, and welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series. WWW is a platform where we provide a space for women to leverage collective wisdom, experiences, and inspiration from women powerhouses in our industry to become innovative game changers. We will be engaging in insightful conversations with women who have changed the face of businesses in our industry and trailblazers who have steered innovative and creative ideas. This is a must-listen podcast for women leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs to become visible, break glass ceilings, and to grow their impact. We believe that sharing these insights will be a catalyst for women in our industry to unleash their potentials and to seize the crisis as a turning point. So join our conversations by subscribing to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast. Energy, passion, empowering. These are some of the words that describe the guest that I will be conversing with in today's episode, Mar Pages. Mar is an ex-Googler and strategy consultant turned online entrepreneur. She is an established digital media consultant, helping brands and bloggers, content creators, and influencers design, implement, and track successful collaborations. She's also the publisher behind the popular Once in a Lifetime Journey, a luxury and out of the ordinary travel website. Mar also runs the highly successful Solo Female Travelers Club, a fast-growing female-powered and female-focused travel business and online community of 100,000 female travelers, a first of its kind internationally. She runs the annual Empoweful festival that focuses on the safety, wellness, and sexual well-being of female travelers that empowers women to travel solo. So let's welcome the highly energetic and passionate Mar Pages on our show today. Hello, Mar. Welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series, episode 3. Thank you so much for being with us today. So lovely to have you here. So how have you been, Mar?
I'm great, thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Thank you, Mar. So we're going to begin and dive into the very first question, which is a personal question that I want to ask you. You are a seasoned solo traveler, and you have traveled to more than 140 countries and 40 solo trips. That is amazing. Can you share with us one of your best memory that you have of your solo trip?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is obviously a very hard choice, right? And it's one of the most commonly asked questions that I get. It's like, oh, what is your favorite place? Where do you recommend going? And it's really hard. I usually give just the top three, but since you asked me only for one, if I have to reduce it to one, I would say Bhutan. I spent 9 days on my own in Bhutan, traveling around the country, staying at 4 different lodges. And it was a beautiful experience. I think Bhutan is a wonderful place to go on your own because it is such a spiritual place, such a spiritual destination, so beautiful. It invites reflection, and it invites me time and time on your own and time to just observe and learn and take it all in. So I think it was a fantastic trip to do solo. I'm very glad that I went on my own rather than with somebody. And it was just like every single minute was a great experience and a great memory and a wonderful time. So I highly recommend that trip for anyone, but particularly for women to go on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bhutan is right now my favorite destination, and I think that's where I also discovered my spirituality, and it's one of the best destinations in the world for us to experience a higher transcendence, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Even if you're not a very religious person like me, it's still, I found it very spiritual and very fulfilling and very, good for reflection and time on your own.
Absolutely. When I looked at your background, and I've known you for some time as well, you're an ex-Googler and strategy consultant turned online entrepreneur. It couldn't have been easy to, leave a cushy job at Google and start out on your own. So could you share with us, when did you first get passionate about focusing on women-related travel and building a community? And when was that pivotal point in your professional life that you decided that, you want to leave a career and be your own boss?
It's interesting because it happened through travel, right? When I was a management consultant, I was traveling every week for work, and I did that job for 8 years. So every single week for 8 years, I would travel, usually long haul. I worked in 30, 40 different countries across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. And because I was in such a fast pace, such a, all-consuming job that was fabulous, and, it was very glamorous, and it was a great job, but it was consuming my entire time. And so I decided that I needed to take some time off to kind of decide what I wanted to do rather than let my job and life happened to me. And I took 2 months and I traveled on my own through the Pacific, through the South Pacific. I went to the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Tonga, Fiji, and a few more countries. And those 2 months that I finally managed to step back and stay away from work and from constantly being in a hamster wheel. Well, you're always so busy all the time. You have no time to actually consider what you want to do. Things just happen to you, and they are great things, but you never actually sit down and say hey, is this what I really want? So those 2 months on my own, at a time, this was almost 10 years ago. It was a time when, particularly in those countries, there was no mobile coverage. There was no internet, right? There was no social media as it is today. I had a BlackBerry that would work from time to time at some Wi-Fi hotspot, and so it wasn't connected yeah, a BlackBerry with it was. I love my BlackBerry. That just shows my age, I guess. And so those 2 months were fantastic because they give me an opportunity to actually think, okay, what do I want to do? And I love my job. So management consulting was a fabulous job. It was business class, 5-star hotels. It was always working for C-levels and boards of directors. It was impactful. Our decisions would be immediately seen in the market because when you're working in the telecoms industry, everybody has a mobile phone, so it affects everyone. So it was a fabulous job, but it left me no time for personal life, right? To have friends, to go for a drink on a Wednesday night, to go on a ladies' night Wednesday evening thing with my girlfriends. It was just never possible because I was never here. And so those 2 months gave me the space to think and realize what I wanted to do. And so I decided that I wanted to quit my job. It still took me a while more because I still wanted to find what I wanted to do instead of what I was doing, save a bit more and so on. So it took me almost 2 more years to leave that job. And then I left that job and I took a sort of year off to find the right next job. I wasn't in a rush to find something else. And I started the process with Google, and, recruitment process at Google take a really long time. It took almost an entire full year for me to go through the whole process. And in that year, I also started my blog, more like as a fun project, thinking a little bit what my grandfather used to always say to me, how great would it be for you to be able to read the stories of all these places that you're traveling to, which were always by definition emerging markets, very unusual destinations. And, there were always so many anecdotes every week. So I started a blog just for fun. I didn't even tell anyone for like a really long time. And it wasn't until a couple of years after I already had started at Google that I realized that there were people making full-time jobs and careers out of, being a content creator, being a travel blogger, being an online publisher, however you want to define it. And when I realized that there were other people doing that, I thought, well, I would love to do that, because then I can merge my passion for telling stories and discovering stories, and also my passion for travel, and make it my career rather than, as they say, if you do what you love, you'll never work another day, right? So I kind of I joined Google, but already with the idea that I wanted a job that allowed me to have more time for myself and my passion. So my job at Google was very different from my job in Mindset Consultant. It was more of a, 8 hours a day doing my job. I had a job that I could do quite easily without a lot of stress. I had a global role, so still, I was traveling. I had the opportunity to work from other offices, which at Google is quite encouraged, and especially if you have a global role, you can work from any office. And my stakeholders were everywhere in Asia Pacific and in other parts of the world. So I kind of started to work at Google while keeping my blog, growing my blog. And then a while after I was at Google, I thought, okay, I want to make a blog my full-time job. And so I did what every consultant would do, which is build a business plan for my life. And so I created a business plan, and I put together all the costs that I had while keeping my lifestyle that I enjoyed and that I didn't want to sacrifice. And I started to, build potential revenue streams for my business. And it wasn't until I reached the amount of revenue that allowed me to maintain my lifestyle that I left my job at Google and decided to set for myself, just at that point, purely with my travel blog, nothing to do with solo female travel or anything like that, just purely my travel blog, which was focused on luxury and destinations nobody goes to. And, this was a bit more than 3 years ago. And so after being with my blog and so on, the opportunity came up to take over Solo Female Travelers, the community on Facebook that is turning 6 years old tomorrow. And it has now 105,000 members.
Absolutely. And you've got 100,000 subscribers, female travelers, and congratulations, because we haven't seen that kind of a huge community of women coming together. So when you created this community, right, when you began, what is that vision that was so compelling, that made you want to start this?
Well,
what was that vision?
So the community was started by a common friend of me and my business partner, as I said, 6 years ago. So I actually didn't start it myself, but I was an early member. I have been in the community ever since the beginning. And when she started it, 6 years ago, solo female travel was not as popular and as common as it is today. It still is quite taboo in a lot of places. And, I'm not talking about conservative societies, but even in many Western countries. And so when she started it, it's because she thought that she felt very lonely in doing that, right? She was a solo female travel blogger. So her entire niche was on that. And so she just wanted a community of like-minded people so that she would feel like she wasn't the only one and she could discuss things. And the community grew, but a sort of slow and steady pace for the first 4.5 years until end of 2019, when it started to grow exponentially. And she realized that she didn't have the time and the bandwidth to keep it, to manage it, continue managing it and moderating it. And at that point, the community had around 20,000 members. And so she just was looking for somebody who would take over. And, we are friends and I know her. And so I thought well, you know what? I would love to take over the community, because even though I'm not writing about solo female travel, it's probably because I never thought about it, but I've been traveling on my own since I was 20, so it's like more than 20 years ago. And so I thought, like, I'm really passionate about female empowerment. I was already very passionate in my consulting job about female empowerment. The consulting industry is very male dominated, especially if you are in the telecoms sector, where 90% of my colleagues were male. 100% of my clients were male. So it was very male dominated, and I was always very much the person pushing for hiring more women and so on. So I always had this like strike of me and like this side of me. I just never thought about it too much until the opportunity came. And then I thought I'd love to take this over, and I wanted somebody to do it with me because doing it alone is too much work. And so I approached my business partner, Megan, and she has also been a solo traveler since she was 18. So, together we took over the community from our friend, and that was around beginning of 2020, just before the pandemic. So it was very much of an opportunity that came up, and then we had this vision for the group, right? So while she started it very much as just a space for like people to connect, at that point we already thought like, okay, this is a very time-consuming job just to manage the day-to-day. So we need to find a way to make it viable, right? It needs to be self-sustaining and self-generating. And so we had all these ideas and plans for the community, but then COVID happened, and then of course we had to put some of the plans on hold because there wasn't much traveling happening for the last 18 months. But we built the foundation during these last 18 months for what we had in mind as the vision for the community going forward.
That's right. Mar, when you look at the statistics, right, there has been a significant rise in the number of women traveling for business and personal travel pre-pandemic, and we were looking at about 2/3 of international travelers being women travelers, and an estimate of about $125 billion to be spent by women alone, right? So, and I think you mentioned that considering these huge exponential increase in the number of women traveling across the world, in one of your interviews, you said that you want to you want to move the industry forward and foster more win-win collaboration and so forth. So what shifts and changes have you been able to create among the women community, as well as for the industry through your work?
So you're right. We realized that, when my friend created the community, solo female travel was still quite an incipient and like a relatively niche need. However, in the last 6 years since the community started, solo female travel has grown exponentially. And if you go to Google Trends and just type the concept, the keyword solo female travel, you would see that up until the beginning of the pandemic, it had grown sixfold. The searches for the term had grown sixfold in the 4 years before the pandemic.
Really?
And I haven't checked it recently, but I'm pretty sure that the growth is much more exponential right now because we see it in the group. So what you see is that women are more and more aware that, it's possible. And this is the most common and most surprising to me discussion and like awareness and realization that we see in the group, that members join the group and then they realize like, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who wants to do this. This is not a crazy idea. There's thousands of us, millions of us doing this. I'm not the only one, and it's not such a crazy thing like my parents or my friends let me believe, right? So that's the number one realization. So just by creating the space, we are allowing women to realize that they're not alone and that this is not a niche type of travel, that this is a really common one. And there are many reasons why women travel solo, and there's nothing wrong with it. And you shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't feel guilty to travel on your own, and you shouldn't be worried. You have to take precautions, but this is not some like crazy thing that your parents and your friends let you believe it is. So that's the one thing. For the women, it's like giving them this space to realize that this is not strange and unique and rare, and then giving them the tools to be able to do that safely and on their own terms, however way they want to travel, whether they want to go luxury or as budget as possible. And then for the industry, it's a bit the same, right? If you are not a solo female traveler and you've never done it yourself, even if you are a woman, you don't understand what the challenges are for women traveling on their own. And I've had this conversation so many times, right? We talk to brands or tourism boards or, hotel chains or whoever it is in the travel industry. And they think that, this is a very niche thing that, it's like a really small segment, when it is not, because besides the fact that it's a huge segment, it's also the fact that women are the ones that make the travel decisions. So even if you're not traveling solo, when you're traveling with your family or with your partner or with whoever, you're still making the decisions. So as a segment, it's a really important one as an influencer for the rest of the travel decisions. But also because if they don't understand what women want and need, they're not going to be able to serve us in the right way, right? So for us, it's about providing data. I can be advocating all day long, right? I can be talking, to everyone and anyone who will want to hear me about how important this is and what women care. But actually, until you have data and facts, people don't start to listen to you seriously. So one of the things that we did to advance the segment and the industry forward is launch a survey at the end of last year, which was very extensive, was the largest ever conducted on solo female travel. We collected 5,000 responses to 30 questions. So this was a very long survey of it took 15 minutes on average to complete. And from that, we got so many insights and so much data, and we could finally put numbers next to things that we knew were true. For example, women worry about safety. 73% of them told us that they worry about their safety. And even those who have traveled solo more than 10 times, so who are there for experience, still worry about safety. 64% of them still worry about safety. So it's a huge issue, right? So with this and many other things, why women travel solo, what are their preference, what accommodation they like, what is their budget, what activities they want, how do they pick a destination, what are their favorite destinations, what are their bucket lists, what are the recommendations for a first solo trip. We had so many questions, and with this, we can actually give it to the travel industry to use that if they want to better serve us or at least better understand us.
Mar, I think it's a very, very interesting, some very interesting points that you have raised. Number one is the growing importance of women not only as travelers, but they are decision makers. They are owners of micro businesses in our industry. In fact, globally, if you look at it, the tourism industry is run 60 to 70%, depending on the country, by women, right, at the forefront. And so that makes it a very lucrative market to understand. And the second thing that you have mentioned is using data to show what is important to women travelers. So I want to focus on that, because when you did Empoweful Summit, I think it's a brilliant summit, and I was part of the summit. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part on it. And I found that, you gathered insights, data, women perspectives. You had so many women industry experts sitting in that festival to speak about their concerns and their insights. So tell me, from your experience in running the Empoweful Summit and the perspectives that you gain from that summit, what do you think women entrepreneurs and leaders, including even female tourism ministers in our industry, can do to facilitate both the industry as well as women to travel?
Understanding the needs and challenges, right? And I think that it goes a little bit back to what I was just saying. Unless you are a solo female traveler, you really don't understand the challenges. I've heard so many times from men, but also from women who don't travel solo. They don't even realize how important safety is and how important certain things that many of us may take for granted are for a woman traveling solo. For example, finding, a concierge at the hotel that will be friendly and that will be able to give you recommendations for places which are safe, or the hotel that will be able to organize you a taxi to take you to your dinner restaurant, and then also the same person go to pick you up from the restaurant, so that you can recognize that it's the same person and you're safe, and you don't have to order a random Uber or pick a taxi in the street. There's just so many things that brands and travel companies can do to make women feel safe. But if they don't understand really and very well what are the challenges and the worries and the motivations, they cannot serve that industry. And so if you're not a woman who travels solo, you don't really understand the challenges. Even if you are a woman that travels solo, by the way, because I am, and I have been for many years, I also never realized the challenges of many other women who may not have the same, financial means or education or professional experiences that I've had, right? So for many other women, it's not even my same experience, despite the fact that I've traveled a lot solo. So it's very important to understand the data and then really listen and then think, what is it that you can do with your products or in your company or in your brand or in your hotel or your tour company to make women feel safer, to make women feel more welcome, to make women feel like, okay, they are understood, you're not dismissing somebody when they say like, oh, like, what is a safe place to go for dinner? And then they'll tell you, oh, don't worry, everywhere is safe. No, that's not the answer you want to hear, right? You don't want generic things like, oh, everything is fine, it's going to be okay, don't worry. No, you want somebody who understands, well, you know what, this street is really safe because there's always lots of people and everybody, and it's very well illuminated and there's always police walking around, versus this area of the city, actually better you don't go at night because it's very dark. Sometimes there's, I don't know, drug dealers or whatever it is, right? So having this understanding and like not dismissing it and making people feel like, okay, your concern is valid and here are the things that you can do in this specific location and in this city to protect yourself, is what makes the difference between a brand which understands what a woman traveling solo needs and a one that doesn't. And the women in the industry should be the advocates for that, because for men it's even more far-fetched. They're so far away from the reality, they cannot even understand it.
So, I imagine that, as we come out of the pandemic and when travel resumes, travel businesses and tourism destinations would want to position themselves to reach out to niche markets, differentiate themselves. And I see a potential for destinations or even women-run businesses to expand their expertise or understand the women market better and try to develop products for this market, right? So that they can position themselves differently from the other destinations or other businesses. So what advice would you have for destinations that want to position themselves as women-friendly, or women-based businesses that may want to leverage on this niche?
Absolutely. And, there are some destinations that have already started to do that. In this last month.
What would that be, Mar? If you could tell me one destination that has already positioned itself to be women-friendly.
Yeah, Costa Rica just announced, in fact, like very recently, last week or the week before, just announced a new initiative where the country will provide a certification and will provide businesses with a network of like businesses that will be certified women-friendly. It has a name. I don't remember the name, but I will give it to you so that you can like put it on the show notes. There's a specific certification the government of Costa Rica has launched for businesses to prove that they understand female travelers and that they are well catered and well set up to better serve the female collective. So Costa Rica is the first one. I've been having discussions with some other tourism boards, like the Catalan Tourism Board, to kind of do that. I think that some destinations are better positioned than others. Some destinations are already naturally well positioned as a solo female travel friendly destination. And those usually are destinations which are safe, which have a lot of, like well-developed tourism infrastructure. So getting around is easy. For example, Western Europe falls under that category, Spain, Italy, France, the UK, right? Destinations where English is widely spoken, just because our community is English speaking, that also means that they feel more comfortable in those places. But then also destinations where it's easy to meet people. That's another element that for women traveling solo, or anybody traveling solo, not just the female collective, finds it as an appealing destination, right? If it's easy for you to meet people, if it's good infrastructure so you can get around using public transportation without problems, and if it's safe, that's already setting you up for, being the right place for women to travel solo. So if you are not under that, if you're not falling under those categories, if your destination is not, friendly, easy to get around, affordable, well English speaking, and safe, then you need to focus on addressing those issues fundamentally. What can you do to overcome the concern around safety if your destination is not safe? What can you do to provide the right infrastructure if your destination doesn't have it? Like basically addressing the things that matter to women traveling solo. And these are some of the ones that I just mentioned.
Right. So I hear from what you're saying, Mar, I think it's looking at Costa Rica or several other countries, one of it is to use data to inform the industry as well as the tourism players through training, what can be done, what products could be, rolled out for women, what is that sound understanding and awareness that you require. And also, I think certification plays a very important role to be able to give that confidence that either the particular destination or these businesses are women friendly. Right. So I want to also move on to asking you a little bit more about your Solo Female Travelers Club. 100,000 is massive, Mar. And even for me, World Women Tourism, we want to build a community, right? And it's not easy to build to that massive numbers. And you have, and I know of many other companies that also want to build their own community. Now, tell me, you have built this community over time. How have you been able to leverage on this community for your work or otherwise?
Well, we consider very much the community as a marathon rather than a sprint, right? Sometimes we have people come to us and say like, oh, you have such a big group. I would love to have like an equally big group. What do I need to do? Well, it's 6 years of work day in, day out, 24/7, right? So you need to consider this as a marathon rather than a sprint. And so all the decisions that you're doing when you're thinking about leveraging it and making it sustainable or generating revenue from it need to be considering the long term, because it's very difficult to build trust, and the trust that you need to use the community for anything else. And it's built over time, slowly and consistently, by showing up, by keeping it safe, by removing spam, by removing conflict, by addressing conflict in a way that's appropriate and polite and respectful of other members. So it's day in, day out, you're showing up. And if you're doing that, then you also need to bear in mind that any decision that you take with regards to leveraging the community for anything needs to consider the impact that that decision may have. So if a brand approaches us and says, I would love to partner with you for X, which happens almost on a daily basis, for us, it's very clear. It needs to be win-win-win. It needs to be a win for the members, and that's the number one priority. If the members are not getting anything out of it and it's not a perfect suit, that's already a no straight away. It needs to be a win for the partner, because the partner needs to also align, right? We don't want to work with somebody that we don't think is going to get anything out of it, right? So it needs to be a win for the partner, and it needs to be a win for the company in the sense of, me, my business partner, and the team, right? It needs to be financially viable, because, we're not an NGO, we are a for-profit company, and so we need to generate some sort of profit out of this to make it sustainable. And so for us, this is like what we always address. Is this a win-win-win for all three parties? And if it is, then we set up a collaboration. So that's for like third-party partnerships of brands that reach out to us. Other than that, we actually sell tours to our community, right? And so right now, around almost half of the tour bookings have come via the group. Community members that see the tours that we have and decide to book, because we have been building this trust and this bond with them over the years. And so they believe in the mission. They like what we are offering. And obviously, when we are offering a group tour, we are offering a destination that we know our members will be interested in. So for us, it's immediate feedback with the community, right? So when we launch something, it's because we have already tested before that we know they are interested in. So we use the community as a funnel to our tour business, and the tour business satisfies the need of our community for those who are not yet ready to go on a solo trip and are using a small group tour coming solo as a stepping stone for a fully independent, fully solo trip. So it's sort of like everything needs to be like a self-fulfilling and self-refeeding process, whether it's an external party or something that we launch. It needs to always be win-win-win.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the business model for tourism is going to change as we come out of the pandemic, and we need to rethink our business. And you said something absolutely wonderful about trust. And I think trust is the new currency. And the way that we funnel businesses, we cannot be just running a company and expect people to buy our products, but the way that we run a community that trusts us and have conversations going, and then from that to build our business seems to be the way forward. And I totally believe in what you are trying to say. As a entrepreneur, right? I mean, I'm sure in your journey, there have been ups and downs, and I think the pandemic would have provided or presented to you more challenges. Can you share some of these biggest challenges that you have faced that I think the listeners will be very interested to hear, not just your success?
Many challenges. As you say, the pandemic posed quite an interesting challenge when it started. However, now hindsight is obviously a wonderful thing. And looking back now, I realized that we were incredibly lucky that we didn't do anything. We didn't launch any products. We didn't launch any courses like Empoweful, and we didn't launch any tours before the pandemic. We have been incredibly blessed with the fact that because of the pandemic, we've had a year and a half to actually prepare the tours and fine tune and curate the experiences to learn about what our members want, to build this trust that you don't build overnight. It is built with every single time that you make a comment, every person that you remove, every admin note that you leave on a thread when you close it, every interaction that members have with you. It's built little by little with every little grain of salt. And so we wouldn't have had that if we had launched the courses or the tours a year ago. So I think we have been quite lucky to have, taken over the group before the pandemic and had a year and a half to perfect and really learn what our members wanted. Because as I was saying earlier, even though me and Meg are both very experienced solo travelers, have been traveling solo for, together we have been to 150 countries and solo to probably 100 because we actually don't overlap geographically. So even despite with all of that, we still didn't really understand our members and their needs and wants until we took the time to really listen to them for a year and a half. And so for us, it's been a blessing in disguise. Obviously, it hasn't been great that we couldn't generate any income for the last year and a half, but it's also been fantastic to give us the time to really think this through. And at the same time, because our partners had more bandwidth, because obviously nobody was traveling either. So all our partners with whom we're doing tours, or all the speakers and the experts that came on Empoweful, like yourself, we wouldn't have had the opportunity and the access to these partners and these wonderful people if it wasn't because of the pandemic, because everybody had a little bit more time in their hands and were a little bit more open to trying something new. So, without any track record of selling tours and without any track record of delivering any tour, put all these partners in 10 different destinations and 3 more in the making have agreed to put up a tour and be so flexible with payment terms and everything to make it happen if it wasn't because of the pandemic. I would like to venture and say that yes, but probably not. We wouldn't have had the same accessibility as we have had because of it. So I think that we were very lucky that we took over the community just before the pandemic and that we had this year and a half to really perfect everything and really understand our members and kind of set our reputation, our trust, and build those bridges that have been incredibly valuable to build what we have now. Obviously, we were also lucky that we had the resources to maintain ourselves for a year and a half. But so it was a combination of luck and also the right timing and hindsight showing to us that we were quite lucky to have this 1 year to build the foundations.
Yeah, I think Mar, what you have just said, it's. I just love what you have just said. The way that you looked so positively at the pandemic. Number one, I think I just like you. We use the time to pause and truly listen to what our community wants. Community or women or our industry wants. Number two, I think it was a perfect time for us to collaborate with like-minded partners, like-minded women. You built a huge number of women who came on board your Empoweful, and I did the same. I at the same time we ran the Women Summit, What Women Want Summit. We ran that as well, and you were part of mine. And I think our collaboration and our friendship blossomed during the pandemic as well. And the third thing that you talked about is the way that you said luck, but I think it's a lot to do with your smart strategizing, where you looked at your community, you built positioning, your branding. At the same time, you started to build trust with your community so that when the timing gets to be better, I think you are going to be leveraging on this. So I think that's a brilliant lesson that we learned from your entrepreneurship journey, especially in the last 1 year or so. And Mar, this podcast, right? We call it Women We Watch in Tourism for a particular reason, because there are some women that we watch and we want them to share their lived experiences and narratives, which would be a source of inspiration. To me, as I watched you over the last year, you are an inspiration for women communities. You are empowering women to travel solo or otherwise, women to come together on platforms to converse and to talk. And so therefore, you are one of the women that I watch. So Mar, who is that one woman that you watch?
Rather than a specific person, I admire and follow quite a lot of women, both friends of mine and people who I've met through the last year of the pandemic, and women who do similar things to ours, like yourself and some other of our experts at Empoweful. I admire particularly women who are true to their mission. Unfortunately, it's a little bit like the same concept of greenwashing, right? There's a lot of people who don't walk the talk, who say these nice things because it is the flavor of the month and it's the right thing to say. Oh yeah, I'm like all for women empowerment. But actually, when it comes to the truth, they are not like that at all, right? So unfortunately, I've also come across a few people in the last year and a half who say all their mission is about this and that, but then in the end, when it comes to the truth, they are not really. But I admire particularly those who are true to their mission and to their beliefs, and who show that in every aspect of their life and every facet, right? It's not just what they say publicly on LinkedIn, but it's actually what they embody every single day. So when I meet them outside of work, they do many things related to the same vision. They'll do it when they are posting about something, when they're talking to friends, when they are talking on an interview, when they are at a party, when they are networking, when they are writing an article or answering an interview. All these are the sort of women that I admire in particular, because it's kind of hard to find people who are truly honest and true to their mission and their beliefs. Everybody has a little bit of this, like, pretending to be in a certain way because that's the right thing to say, but it's not really the true to what they do. And so I particularly admire those who are. And my business partner is a great example of that. You are as well. Some of the speakers that are at Empoweful are exactly like that. I see them wherever I see of them or read of them, it's always that, and I know for a fact that they really believe that. So that's the sort of women I look up to.
Oh, beautifully said, Mara, and thank you so much for acknowledging our work as well. We have come to the end of today's conversation, very reluctantly, though. I don't want to end this conversation with you, and I think we will have plenty of platforms to talk more. But what is the one takeaway that you want listeners to get from this episode and your experience, Ma?
How important trust is. I think it is something that it's a very valuable currency. It's one that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, cannot be pretended. People see through those things. If you are genuine and you are honest and you are authentic, people will trust you, will believe in you, and they will follow you. And I think that this is something that brands really struggle with, because brands are not people, they are brands. And it is much harder to connect with a brand than it is to connect with a person. And so I believe that brands struggle very much with that. But it is, to me, the new currency that's the most important for people. How much trust you have in a person, in a brand, in a company, that they will do the right thing. And I think COVID has brought a lot of that to the surface, right? A lot of brands who maybe were not as trustworthy or genuine or honest as we thought they were. And so customers realizing that, hey, this company actually didn't actually follow what they were saying if they were trying to do this and that, right? So we hear this a lot in the group, and I think it will be the new currency in the wider sense of the word, be it because of safety, be it because of financial solvency and being able to get money back, be it because when somebody says something, you actually believe it rather than thinking, is this really true, or are they just saying this because it's the right thing to say? So for me, this is like the main learning that I take from COVID, how important trust is, being honest, being genuine and authentic to yourself. And if you will attract the right people, be it customers, partners, and acquaintances, and business friends, and so on. So just stay true to your values, and other people will actually find you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think these are the same values that, drew me to you, and I love working with you and speaking with you. So thank you so much, Mar, for being with us today. And, one thing about you is that you've got so much of experience. You are sitting on intelligence and data. You've got a huge community of women followers. And I think, plus at the same time, you are a very empowering person yourself, and there are many people who may want to connect with you online. So what is the best way that our listeners can connect with you, online or otherwise, if they are more interested to find out more about the work that you do, Mar?
If they are a woman and they are interested in solo travel, they can join our community. It's Solo Female Travelers on Facebook. So it'll be like facebook.com/groups/solo female travelers. Actually, our URL is the only one with solo female travelers on the URL. And to me personally, they can find me on LinkedIn, Mar Pages. That will be my LinkedIn, and that's where I connect with most people, professionally. And in there, they'll also find my email if they want to email me.
Thank you so much, Mar, for being with us today. It's been absolute pleasure listening to you, your energy, your passion, and the empowerment that you give to me and the listeners as well. So I wish you the very, very best in growing your community to double where you are at the moment, as well as to start your solo female traveler experiences once again, once the borders are lifted. So thank you, Mar. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.
Thanks, Nisha. It's been a pleasure. I always love talking to you and reflecting on the things that we do. So I'll be very much looking forward to listening to all the rest of the podcast and all the other guests that you are interviewing.
Thank you. Our pleasure. And that was my conversation with Mar Pages. To all listeners, thank you so much for being with us on this episode. If you like this episode or would like to share your views, please connect with us on womenwewatchtourism@gmail.com. Please feel free to share this episode with women around you to inspire them. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as subscribe to us on all major podcast platforms. Till we meet again on our next episode, this is your host, Nisha, signing off. Stay inspired and goodbye.